Hey guys, welcome back to Recreational Sniper. Last week, or not last week, the week before last, I was working with some Alco 175 grain rebated boat tail ULD bullets, ultra low drag bullets. So these things are super cool, and they've got a G1 ballistic coefficient of 0.707, which is extremely high for a 308 or a 30 cal bullet, especially in our 175 grain class. But I was having some issues getting some accuracy out of them. I did get, two groups I think were notable accuracy, and if we go back and look at this, kind of give you a recap on the targets. See, those are with burgers. Actually, it looks like I'd really just had one group that showed me some accuracy potential, and it was this one here. And I believe that was at 44.5 grains, and the velocity we were running there was, got to keep all this stuff written down, at 44.5 grains. We were looking running right close to 2,500 feet per second, about 2490 on average. So that's pretty good for a 175 grain out of a 16-inch barrel. So when I prepped the brass last time, I basically did very minimal brass preparations. The only thing that I did was I just full-length resized, or obviously I cleaned it first, and then full-length resized, deprimed the brass, and then trimmed it and chamfered and deburred the neck, and that was it, or the mouth of the case. But that was it. Other than that, I did not do anything else to this brass, so it was like bare minimal brass prep for reloading. That would be the minimal that I would recommend doing for rifle brass. So with the results that I got, I'm really not happy with them. I really didn't, other than that one group that kind of showed some potential, there really was no other group that showed any promise at all at any load range. And basically I'm loading these to the depth that will actually feed in the magazine reliably. And I will say that the depth that I chose worked great. I had no issues feeding with a cartridge overall length of 2.850 inches. But I will say that my trim length was not quite correct. I know from the paperwork that comes with the die set, it shows that the maximum trim length can be 2.015 inches, and the minimum trim length is 2.005. Or, well, it's not really the minimum trim length, but that's the, pretty much the standard recommendation for trim length on 308 brass is 2.005. I trimmed mine to 2.008 for no particular reason. It just, when I set my trimmer up and I was kind of dialing it back, I didn't think that I could really get it closer to 2.005 without going too short, and I didn't want to waste any of the brass that I have and trim it off too short, and then have to fire it a couple times to get it back up to length. So I just left it at 2.008, and I did notice, and if you watch the previous video of me shooting these bullets, that there was a couple times when I went to close the bolt that it was a little tight. So I went ahead this time and messed with the trimmer and got it back to 2.005 inches. And I also went ahead and fully prepped this brass. So I've gone through this whole bucket of brass here that I've got, a box of brass. And these pieces, I went and I annealed these. Now I flame annealed these with a bottle torch, with like this bottle torch head here. And I, because I really clearly don't have the space or setup that's really gonna do good for me with having an actual annealer, which is, unfortunate. But good news is I'm actually finally working on building a reloading shop and gunsmithing shop. And it's starting out, it's going to be about 200 square feet, and then I'm planning on adding another 200 square feet to it in the next couple of years. But I will have plenty of room to have a good annealer setup, and maybe even a bigger press, because right now I'm using a single stage, using the Lee Classic cast press, which is actually big enough to load 50 BMG on, which originally, that's what I bought this press for. It was like, I need one press that's capable of loading 50 cal, because at that time I did have a 50 BMG that I had planned on shooting and reloading for. Unfortunately, I just never shot the rifle much, and it was just taking up a lot of space in my gun safe, so decided to kind of get into something else, because the gun ranges around here don't really allow you to shoot 50 cal. So but that's a whole other story. So fully prepping this brass, I annealed it as best I could, and I think I did an okay job annealing this brass, getting the neck and a little bit past the shoulder, and then after that, full length resized, and then of course deprimed and everything, and then I decided to go ahead and turn the necks on this brass. So, well, actually first I trimmed it, and then I turned the neck on the brass, and I kind of just barely, I don't know if you can tell, but you just barely get into the shoulder, just a hair, and that'll kind of help reduce that donut that happens from turning brass with only an outside turner. I don't have one of the new fancy iodide neck turning tools that simultaneously turns the inside wall and the outside wall at the same time. So I'm using the next best thing that I think I could get a hold of, and I'm using this Hornady neck turning tool. These haven't actually been out that long, I don't think, but for me, I think it works pretty good. As far as the neck turning goes, I've got the wall thickness set at 0.014 inches, so 14 thousandths of an inch is my wall thickness I'm starting with here. Basically, I just kept dialing it in until there was no, until it was cut clean from the mouth to the shoulder. And because the wall thickness will vary on these cases, and you'll notice that when you start using a turning tool, is you'll actually be able to see that it will cut more off in some areas than others, and some areas will be thinner and it may not cut any at all until you like really start dialing it in. So when I finally got it to the point where it took off all the material evenly, it was at 14 thousandths thickness on the case wall at the neck. And then after that, I did go ahead and uniform the primer pocket and the flash hole. And for the flash hole tool, I'm using this K&M Precision, and this is the 0.080 inch flash hole tool. And then I also am using the K&M Precision large primer pocket uniformer, and it took out some material and like really cleaned up the primer pocket quite a bit. So that's going to be my prep for this brass. So what I've got here, down here in this box, is the brass that's annealed. It's not been resized yet. So I need to lubricate this brass and resize it, and then I need to trim it, and then turn the necks on it and chamfer it. One of the things too is, admittedly, using these Alco bullets, it says right here on the box, or on the case, the pill bottle, it says Alco recommends utilizing a VLD chamfering tool for case mouth preparation and high quality seating dies that include a ULD seating stem. Do not tumble these bullets. So, admittedly, when I was loading these at the time, I did not have a ULD chamfering tool. I just had a standard chamfering tool for just standard, boat tail bullets. And so, during the 4th of July weekend, all that, I decided, I wasn't shooting this weekend, so I decided to do two things. I wanted to go ahead and get me a VLD chamfering tool, and you can definitely tell the angle is much, much steeper for VLD bullets, or very low drag. And then I also decided to get me a cartridge gauge for .308 Winchester. I've loaded without these for a long time. I do have them for most calibers, but once and I use them initially when I start loading a different caliber, a new caliber or something, and I'll just make sure they plunk correctly and all that. But I didn't do that with this 308, and I haven't done it with the 300 PRC, or not the 300, but the 6.5 PRC. I do have one for 6.5 Creedmoor, and I believe that's this one. This is a Wilson case holder for 6.5 Creedmoor. But I decided to go with the Hornady because it fits the full case in there. So this is one that's fully prepped up, and it does, like, that last hair going in there, it does have a little bit of tension on it. That's not going to work. Here, old broken depriming rod. Just push it out. But it does, if I do the plunk test, you can see that it just barely sticks up, but you can easily just kind of push it in there with the end of your finger, and it fits flush like it should. Hopefully that's in focus for you guys. So there you go. This is on a case that's fully prepped, neck turned, everything like that. These cases have been full length resized, and that is it. These have not been trimmed yet, if I'm not mistaken. I can go ahead and check real quick, but I don't believe they've been trimmed. Now, we're reading 2.020 on these, so they have not been trimmed yet. And these actually, they fit, but not quite as deep in there. Like, they're just barely, like, you could hang your nail on the edge of that case. So, according to that, this would be a little bit tight in the chamber if I didn't do anything to it. Which may be the issue I was seeing with closing the bolt is, yeah, see, it looks like pretty much all of those are a little tight in the chamber. So, seeing as how these are already full length resized before I annealed them, I'm probably just gonna save those for something else. I'm thinking about going to, because I like to hunt with VMAX bullets, so I'm thinking about getting some like 110 grain VMAXs or 115s or 120s or whatever weight they come in for 308. Maybe just load some hunting rounds in those. They don't have to be super accurate for me because I never hunt more than 50 yards. My longest shot on a deer is probably less than 50 yards. So if it shoots a 2-inch group at 100 yards, that's way more than accurate enough for what I'm going to use it for. That's just the way it is where I go hunting at. You're just not going to pull off a long shot there. So having a 2-minute of angle round for hunting is perfectly fine for my application. Now, if you live in a wide open area where you could potentially pull off a 500-600 yard shot or more, then yeah, you're going to want better accuracy potential than that. But like I said, where I hunt, 50 to 70 yard shot is going to be the max. Like, that is a very long shot because, you know, the woods and stuff here are very dense and the underbrush is very dense and that sort of thing. So yeah, if I can get a 2-inch group at 100 yards with some 120 grainer VMAX, that'll be fine. And it, you know, if you think that's maybe a little bit too light of a bullet, you know, consider that I'm going to be shooting 50 yards or less. So it'll have an immense amount of energy at that short range. So like I said, I've got to fully lubricate these, and I have been using this Lee resizing lube. I've used this stuff for years and it works fine. I've never had any issues with it. I also have some Imperial sizing dye wax, and then I've also got the Royal case and dye lube. This stuff smells good, but I don't know why they made it that way. Maybe it's just something they made it out of. And I've used the Imperial, but so far I've never had any issues using the Lee resizing lube, so I've just been using it quite a bit. As far as loading goes, I do know in the load data the primers they're using are not Magnum primers, but I've got way more large rifle Magnum primers than I do standard rifle Magnum primers, and the Magnums are the oldest primers I have, so I'm kind of working through just shooting these up. I'm loading them in 6.5 Creedmoor, I'm loading them in 6.5 PRC, loading them in 308 now, and you know, as soon as I run out of those, I'll move to standard large rifle primers. They seem to be working great in 6.5 Creed and 6.5 PRC, but maybe that it causes a little bit of an issue using this Hoshin BLC2 powder in the 308, or maybe not. I don't know. It's just a little hotter ignition, basically. Maybe it fully ignites more powder faster and that sort of thing, but I don't know. I think that really the primer going from a Magnum to a standard primer, I just don't think that it's gonna, you know, be the difference between shooting a 2 MOA group and a half MOA group. It's not gonna make that big of a difference. It might make a little bit of a difference, but not that big of a difference. So let's get to it. Let's get some lubricant out here and lube up some of these bullets. Just for the time being, my friggin' reloading bench is a mess right now, but just for the time being, I am going to take these out and set them over here out of the way. So I don't want to accidentally get one of these that I don't plan on shooting this weekend. Speaking of shooting this weekend, at my local range, pretty excited. They've opened up for an 800 yard range, so I'll get more opportunities to shoot long range, you know, just down the road from me, like literally a 20-minute drive through the woods over to where our local range is. Downside of that is I don't actually have a membership there. I just go with my dad. I go pick him up usually on the weekends and we go together. So I'll have to get me a membership to be able to shoot on the 800 yard range, because they require you to be a member and they require you to do some of the training or whatnot. They basically, a guy's going to go out there with you and make sure you know what you're doing to shoot that far. You know, have you set up a target at they'll have a target at an unknown distance, and they'll just make sure you know how to properly index all your equipment and dial up to it and be able to hit that target. So that'll be pretty cool. I like to do the outsides of these first, however many I'm going to do, and then I'll come back through with a cotton swab and do the inside. Because I want to see how this goes before I, you know, decide to just load up like 50 rounds and then take them and then all 50 of them shoot like crap. I would rather, you know, shoot 10 or 15 or 20 and say, oh, well, it's not really working out, and maybe try something different. It's kind of the tedious thing about reloading, and, you know, some people don't go through this much trouble of reloading, and some people have these really cool, awesome automated setups and that sort of thing, and, you know, it's just, I find it interesting to watch other people's, you know, to see other people's methods for reloading, because everybody's got their own little thing that they do differently than everybody else, and, you know, some people say, oh, you know, one way is better than the other, or, you know, they may tell you that what you're doing is wrong or whatever, but, you know, do what works for you. You know, find a method that works for you and stick to it. Sometimes I try different methods and I try different things that I see other people doing just to see if it would work for me. And then if it doesn't work for me, then I go back to the way I like to do things. You know, or if, you know, if I try something that they're doing, turns out it works better than what I was doing, then guess what? That's my new method of doing things, because that's how we learn. That's how we grow, and we get better. Is always experimenting, always looking for some sort of advantage to make everything that you do better. And, you know, that's not necessarily just for reloading. So, got those lubricated. I've already got my die set up. I'm going to go ahead and make sure it's still tight in the press. The dies I'm using, by the way, are the Lee Ultimate die set, the 4-die set. So they got a full length resizer, and then they also have a neck sizer, and then they also have a factory crimp die. Most of the time, like bolt action stuff, I don't use the crimp die, and I really don't neck size. I think I may have neck sized when I first started reloading, but the problem with neck sizing is that you can only do that a couple times before you end up having to full length resize and start over with your brass. You know, push the shoulder back and stuff. Otherwise, it gets too tight and won't chamber, or it gets really sticky in the chamber. So if you full length resize every time you load the brass, then you don't have to worry about this constant variable changing. That's, you know, that's one of those things you can control. Yeah, that's kind of the reloading room / junk room as well. But eventually I'll get into a bigger space. I mean, this room is very small and I have a lot of crap in here. Like, if you just want to take a look at some of this stuff. See? Yeah. So anyways, not a lot of bench space. My bench is pretty small and pretty covered up with stuff. So we're going to start resizing these bad boys. I gotta kind of reposition my camera tripod here. So I'm just doing brass preparation on this video. I'm not actually loading any ammunition. Sorry, YouTube. I know you would like to kick my videos out, but this is just brass prep. Brass preparation only. We kind of talked about some reloading, but this is just brass prep. We're not reloading ammo here. I just wanted to measure one of these that is not resized yet, just to kind of see what it measures at. And it's 2.015. How much does it stretch when you resize it? 2.024. So it grows quite a bit, at least this 308 brass does. Now that we got our 20 pieces of brass resized, next thing to do, let's go ahead and do those primer pockets. Let's work on those. So I think the best thing to start with is actually our primer pocket uniformer. And for this, I just chuck it in this little impact driver. And this will do a couple things. It'll uniform the primer pocket, make sure the walls are like perfectly straight, and the bottom of the primer pocket is perfectly square and flat and even and all that. And as a bonus, it'll actually clean your primer pocket for you. So you ain't gotta go too crazy with it. But maybe you can see that, hopefully. Yeah. So we got that one done. We'll just go through these real quick. It's one of those tools that you only use it once. Like when you're prepping a piece of brass, this is a prepping stage that you only do one time. The same as when you're turning the necks. So when you turn the necks on the brass, you only do it once and it's done. You don't ever have to do it again, unless of course you get new brass. So that part of the deal's done, and I won't ever have to do that again to those pieces of brass. Now the next part is the flash hole, and the reason why I did the primer pocket uniformer before the flash hole uniformer is if you do it the other way around, this basically, if there's any debris left over in the flash hole from that, any burrs or anything from using the primer pocket uniformer, the flash hole uniformer will get rid of those burrs. So that's the reason why I do it second. So basically you just stick it in the mouth of the case, and sometimes it's kind of hard to get the tip of this cutter is very sharp and it digs in the brass a little bit on the inside, so sometimes it's a little hard to get it started in the hole. But and just kind of turn it a little, and when it gets easy on you and there's really no more resistance, that's it. So and another process that I will never have to do to those 20 pieces of brass. All right, from there, we're going to go on to trimming the brass, because I'm sure that this stuff is pretty inconsistent right now. 2.021, 2.022, 2.020, 2.024. So that's what you get with once you've fired brass. So what we're going to do is now we're going to trim it, and for that, this is kind of rigged a little bit rigged up, but again, I'm going to use the drill. I've already have this set to 2.005, so I don't have to mess with it any. I believe this is a hand cranked trimmer, and basically took the handle off of it and then drilled this out. And I originally was going to try to figure out a way to fix one of these little quarter drive hex bits in there and fix it permanently where I could just hook the drill onto it, because I'm lazy and I didn't want to buy a new new trimmer. But this seems to work with this little four-sided weird bit that I don't use for anything. All right. Just gonna set that on that end so I don't forget about it. Anyways, we'll give it a couple turns. Give it a couple turns. Get these things ready to be turned. The neck's turned on them, so. Those are ready. Try to use the exact same pressure and exact same amount of turns every time. So 1 forward, 2 forward, 3 forward. 1, 2, 3. Now we'll do the outside real quick. Which I actually could skip this part because when I run it through the neck turner, it's going to cut the outside off anyways. But I'm going to do this just because. Same thing. 1, 2, 3. 3 turns back and forth. Alright, now we're going to go to our neck turning tool. And like I said, I'm going to dial this back just a couple notches because I did drop it and I don't know if it messed anything up or not. So I'll go ahead and check the thickness on this, and we're still at 0.0014, so 14 thousandths of an inch thickness. And on the non-turn brass we are at 17 thousandths thickness, so we're turning 3 thousandths off. At least that's the goal. So all right. Okay. Sometimes I do anchor this thing down to the bench, but tonight I'm not going to. So, get the old drill back out again. I'll just slip that in there and go for it. Okay, there's still a little bit left on there. All right. See how we did. And that's our 14 thou thickness we're looking for. Hang on. Yeah, that's gonna be it. So anyways, that's pretty much it to my brass case preparation. So it's getting late. I gotta work tomorrow early in the morning, so I'm going to go ahead and shut this show down. I'll finish these up maybe tomorrow evening and get them loaded and everything ready to go. Other than that, if you guys got any comments, questions, anything that you are wondering why I did something a certain way, go ahead and leave that in the comment section below and I will do my best to answer it. So I want to thank you guys for watching. I want to thank you guys for breaking over that 200 subscriber mark. That was pretty cool. Hopefully we can keep that trend going, and we'll see you next time in the next video.